Hey, what's up guys? Nick Quintero here, and today I'm going to show you how I make interesting text layouts in Adobe Illustrator. All right, let's go.
Perfect.
All right, so getting started here, I actually use a lot of my own fonts that I make and sell, but this can be used with all sorts of fonts depending on the style that your designs look like, or whatever like matches your designs. Since I make my own fonts, they usually tie back to my illustrations and things like that. So that's what I like to use, and honestly, that's why I like to make them. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my font, Texicali, which you'll probably recognize from like my thumbnails and things like that. This is usually the font that I use. It's kind of the one that I start with almost every time, unless I'm doing something taller or more condensed. So to start out, I want to just go over some text layouts that I use a lot. And one of them is a circle, so that's pretty straightforward. To make a circular text layout, all you have to do is draw a circle with the circle tool, press T for your type tool, and then click somewhere along the path to start typing on it. Now, for a lot of my designs, I usually start with like an arch up on top and then maybe one that goes on the bottom. So we'll start with the top arch. Now, the way that I like to do this is to hold Option and click right here on the bottom point. And when I click on it, you'll see what happens. The text starts here. So this is your left alignment and it wraps around. So I'm just going to make it say Lorem Ipsum. And then I'm going to select this, and I'm actually going to change my type orientation to be aligned in the center. And then you'll see it shoots right up to the top center of the circle because it stops being justified to this left side and goes right up there. So then here you can scale your text up, and really from here you've got a good nice arch that can work for a lot of things in a lot of instances that people would be doing with text and type. So a lot of my designs, especially lately, have had like a second line down here. So instead of continuing to type on here, what I like to do is copy it with Command C and paste it in front with Command F. And then I select my rotation tool by pressing R, and then I just spin this guy around. And if you hold Shift, it'll automatically snap to like a perfect center. Now, this works perfectly if all you want is, a continuous circle of text, but typically I like to make it so that it reads left to right here and then left to right here. So in order to do this, you want to select the upside down path, go to type on a path, type on path options. Now, this little window gives you a lot of tools to be able to adjust what you want. So I'm going to check preview so that we can see what happens when I change one of these settings. And I'm going to click flip, but you see that it brings it inside and it looks pretty stupid. That's because you are on the baseline. If you change it to the ascender though, it doesn't really line up perfectly with this top path, which I still don't like. So what I like to do is change to the center path, click OK, and then actually select the other one and do the same thing. So even though you don't need to flip it, if you change it to center, both of these will line up perfectly. So to me, that's the easiest way to make this setup work without having to manually, move your text and your circle and shrink it and do all these extra steps to make it line up. If you just make them both align to the center path, you'll get this perfect shape here. And then a lot of times what I'll do, you'll notice on my designs, is I'll put like a little circle, a dot in between them, and then draw something in the middle. And that's how I make a simple text layout for that circle. Another text layout that I like to do is sometimes I like to have a, two words, one that is straight across below, and then one that is arched over it. Now, the simple thing that a lot of people would try to do is use the warp effect and the arc, but you can see that it stretches this really, really weird, and I don't personally like that at all, so I don't like to do that. What I prefer to do is take my circle tool again and draw an oval shape until I get the shape of the arch? I don't know. The shape up here that I like, and then I'll do the same thing where I will press T, hold Option, click here. This one's already centered because the last one was, and then change this to say what I want it to say just on this arch here. And you can see that it no longer stretches those things really weird. So now you have two words, one arched over the other. And that's another really, really simple text layout that looks really cool and looks way more professional than using the arc warp. All right, so another text layout that you have probably seen me use a ton of times is the tall arch. So what I'll do is I'll draw a rectangle and then I'll select my top 2 points, and you'll see that these curve handlebars will come up. And if you have them both selected, all you have to do is grab one and pull it down as far as it can go to get this perfect, doorway like arch shape. And then you can apply the same principles. Hold Option, click in the center here, and then you will see that it comes up there. Now, usually I have more words whenever I use a layout like this, so I'm going to go ahead and just make it say lorem ipsum, shrink it down until the words are where I want them to be, and bam. Now, one thing you do have to pay attention to, that I have actually messed this up in the past, is where these two things line up. So if you click on your ruler and drag down, you can create a guide, and then this will help you actually be able to line these up. If you click to the left of your first word, hold Option and click the right arrow, it'll shift everything to the right a little bit, which will push it all over, ensuring that you get like a nice little lined up spot there. Perfect. That is how you get a big tall arch. And then I will sometimes grab some text and add a V, make it centered. And then if you have this wrapped text and you want this one to match it, you can just select this one, press I for your eyedropper, and when you click on another text path, it'll actually copy the settings exactly so the size of the font matches. And now you can put more text in here and have a nice little layout. And then if you are really like me, you'll have another one down here on the bottom, but a lot of times I do have to shrink that one down to match or make it work in this text layout. I know it's kind of hard to imagine what this will look like because it's all just the same words over and over, but I think if you've seen my art, my designs, what I do, you'll understand exactly how I use these. So now there are a couple of different things that I like to do to make a difference here. So one of them is to make 2 lines of text that rotate in the opposite directions and not necessarily upside down. So I'll actually grab them both, go back to my type 1 path, options, and click center again so that they're both the same. And then I can grab my top one, go back to those options and click flip. And so now you have 2 arched texts going in opposite directions. And sometimes that's cool between another word, something that's like larger. Like, let's go ahead and start using some examples. Like if I wanted to call this Cowgirls Coffee Company, you can really see how those 2 different arched text paths make a difference here. And I'm actually going to kern these out really, really wide so that you can get the idea of how those things are curved. Look, that's awesome. I just made a logo for a fictional company in like 20 seconds. All right. So another good text layout actually doesn't even need the square. So one thing I like to do for designs that could be bandanas or things that actually just fit into a square is to make these texts that are perfectly squared off, and by making them fit within the bounds of this square. So I'll just copy this and rotate the copy and place it down here. And then I'll actually just group both of these, copy, paste in place, use my R tool to rotate them again, and then use my Option and right arrow to space them out until they match or at least fit a little bit. And now you've got this really awesome square border that can be used for a lot of different kinds of designs. And you can even put like a large icon in here, like if you had a logo, or just maybe it was the first letter of the text on everything else, something like that. I think this looks almost exactly like an old Patreon ad that I made for myself a while back. I guess I should save all of these, so I won't delete any of them. Perfect. So another cool thing to do, this is really good for modern brands and modern design aesthetics. A lot of companies are using Wavy Text. And so for that, I like to just draw a simple wave. And I use my Cintiq where I can draw straight on the screen. But I know a lot of you will have like Wacom tablets, or you can actually just draw this path with points. But I use my Cintiq because that is why I bought it. All right, so now that I have this curvy path here, I'm gonna go ahead and press D so that I can see it. And now press T for my text tool again and come down to this edge. On a straight line, a path that is not closed like a circle, you don't have to hold Option when you click on it. You can just hover over it and you'll see that your cursor changes. So when you click that, of course, it auto-fills. And now you have this nice little wavy line that you can put over, maybe a larger logo. Like let's say this is not a coffee brand, but let's say this is a linens brand, because for some reason this curve thing just makes me think of like sleeping and comfort. I don't know why. So let's just call it Cloud 9O. I'm going to space it out again because I love to do that. And you can see how that works. It's beautiful. Another good text layout that I like to use is the stair step. And so let's call this stair step coffee. Now, the coffee word is like a little bit too long compared to stair and step. So I actually wouldn't use this. I like to use the stair step look whenever the words are all about the same length. So let's actually change the name. Let's change it to guided downward coffee. Now everything's a little bit longer and it really makes a lot more sense. Now that one was super simple, just typing out words in 3 lines and you have an awesome, interesting text layout. And sometimes you don't have to overthink these things. Like sometimes it's totally fine to just use the tools in the simplest ways and use your imagination to make them really, really cool. All right, let's think of another layout. Oh, another good one that I like to use is very, very similar to the circles. So I'm actually just going to bring these over here. In the meantime, I'm going to give you an extra tip. When you make layouts like this, it's a great idea to save this file with all of these different layouts to use later, because even if things need to be changed very heavily, you have a good starting point and you don't have to go through all of the type on path option menus like all the time. If you can just always grab this base circle that you've already made and use it like I am to turn it into something else. So now I'm going to grab this straight across one and I'm going to call this, let's make this one a beer. So now you can put this large text here and you can keep these arching texts wrapped around it. Now, you can also do something very similar with this text layout. Like, you already have these pieces, so you can shrink this one, put that one in the middle, and then do another one of these by just rotating it and flipping it. Let's see. So we'll flip this one, but let's keep these selected and go ahead and make a new one, and where these are on the center line, and move that guy up. Let's go ahead and shrink that font a little bit and space it out. And now you have this cool layout with two arches and a big word in the middle. And another way to do this to make it really cool, if you have a lot more text, I like to bring these up, bring some straight ones, but shrink them down really small and stick it right here in the middle. Here, let's make this a real set of words so we can see what it says. So let's call this the downtown. Shrink it down so it fits. Company is such an easy one to do for these examples. So let's say downtown beer urban. And then we'll call this the, well, I'll just write brewing, even though it doesn't make any sense because you don't brew bourbon, but you get the idea. You can use this to create more words and fit them here into the space. All right, let's move this guy here. And actually, I want to show one more using this kind of layout and the different options that you have by having all of these things created already. So once you have these like directional arches and different kinds of words, you can figure out how to lay them out the best way possible. So let's call this the Downtown Beer Company, and we'll just use it like this. And now you have another interesting layout from the same exact setup that you already created for this one. And that's how you can just keep using what you've created to create something new. This is super helpful, especially if you're working with a client and you're trying to make some sort of logo or label and you need to give them a lot of options. This way, you can kind of remix what you have already done and what you're working on currently and show them some really quick examples of the type of text layouts. You know, you don't even have to have your wording perfect at this stage. You can just show them the different ideas that you have and figure out what works. So it's really important to know that like not every single one of these text layouts works for every single idea that you have. Like you would probably not be able to make this simple 2-line one say everything that you need to say for every single job that you're working on. You can add another small line under it or put something in between them. But I think, you know, you kind of have to play with these to figure out exactly what's going to work. But I think that's the beauty of keeping these around so that you can always kind of go back to them and try things out, see what makes sense, see what works and what doesn't, and go from there. It's really going to be up to you, and it's really going to depend on the kind of fonts that you have, the size of font that you need to use, and whether it's a wide font, a condensed font, or hand-drawn or serif or whatever it is. You really can take these and plug in something new to see what works. So let's take this guy, for example, and change it to another one of my fonts that looks completely different. You can see that it doesn't line up exactly when you change the font, but it's totally still usable because you can just take this one, shrink it down, make it so that it looks more correct for this kind of layout. You can even bring these higher or lower, and you can even say maybe you only want this font for Logger, so let's go ahead and change the other one to something different. And then you can see that you need to like shrink it down closer, whatever. It just gives you a lot of room to play with, and I think it'll be super helpful for you to create your own text layouts, play with the fonts, and use what you created here as sort of a go-forward template for all of your text-related stuff in the future. All right, guys, that's it for this one. I really appreciate you checking it out. If this is your first time watching my videos, I do a lot of graphic design tutorials like this, specifically things for making t-shirts and merch for your brands, your bands, your small businesses, and things like that. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting that little bell so that you can get notified whenever I create new videos like this. Also, if you hit that little like button, it helps me out tremendously because it knows to show this video to more people who might like the content that I'm creating here. All right, guys, I really appreciate you checking this out, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you got some value from it, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.